Hey guys and gals, this is Cal from Dirty Weasel. Episode 11 of the Skyrim Special Edition Modding Guide continues with more mod conversions. Now we will incorporate two of the tools we discussed in Episode 9, NIF Optimizer and the Bethesda Archive Extractor. I'll cover their use and show examples converting primarily weapon and armor mods, with a few exceptions. If you haven't watched the aforementioned Episode 9 covering setup and tools, or the Episode 10 showing the creation kit in use, I encourage you to do so, as we will be speeding through those procedures in the interest of time. Let me give the standard disclaimer. The information contained in this video is for personal use only. No mod converted by you should be redistributed to the public without the mod author's consent. With that out of the way, let's head on over to the desktop. Alrighty, so we got a lot of work to do. Let's get started here. And like I said, the premise of the series is to start with very basic and move on as we introduce more tools and become more complex as we go along. The other thing is to teach you how to critically think and how to kind of work on mods and convert them in a logical manner and kind of give you, thought processes on my end to try and help you through things. And when we get to Black Sacrament over here, we'll talk more about that. But we're going to be talking about primarily two things. We're going to talk about NIF Optimizer and BAE, or Bethesda Archive Extractor. I'm going to show them to you right now. You have NIF Optimizer, mod number 4089 by Osnisius. I'd like to talk about in episode 9. Read through this stuff, understand it. And the Bethesda Archive Extractor by John WD, WD7, and it is mod number 974. Read through these stuff and understand the basic instructions for this. As far as Bethesda Archive Extractor, my friend Michael from Gamer Poets has a complete video on it. We'll explain it completely, but I'm just going to go through the basics and kind of show you how it works in general. So let's get started. Now, as far as weapons and armor, and this is primarily going to be the use of NIF Optimizer. First mod I've got is just a random one. I've never used it. It's just called Sword of the Ancient Tongues, mod number 527. And I've already extracted it out into its own temp file. Open that up, and you can see it has data. And opposite in that, you have meshes and textures and an ESP. Textures, just always double check and make sure that it's not all TGAs, it's all DDSs, so we're good there. And we have meshes. Now you have weapons, Sword of the Ancient Tongues, and you have two NIFs. This is probably the most basic thing you're going to find is two meshes. Okay, so that's what we've got. So how do we convert those meshes? For the special edition, you always have to convert your meshes. They just don't work as well as they could, and you're going to potentially run into problems if you don't optimize them. So I always say they may work with special edition or they may not work, but let's optimize them anyways because you want to do everything right the first time. Over here in your modding tools, and I hope you set up a modding tools folder in episode 9, you open this up and we have SSE NIF Optomizer. Okay. And you're going to see two things. You're going to see the optimizer.exec and the optimizer.txt. And we want to go ahead and read this later on as we go through each step. But for right now, we're just going to open the SSE NIF Optimizer.exec. And you have this little operation window. Yay. Okay. So we can go ahead and minimize this down because I don't want to close it completely because we'll be reading the text file. You have an interesting tool here. You have a browse button that'll take you to the folder you want to optimize. You have remove unused strings, clean skinning, delete unreferenced blocks, and head parts only. I would suggest always keeping these three, remove, clean, and delete. Always keep those checked. Head parts we will talk about when we start, getting into a different set of mods. But for right now, since we are only doing the weapons, we don't need to do any head parts. Head parts are like eyes, skin, beard, hair, that sort of thing. Helmets don't count. Helmets are equipment, so just keep that in mind. And we will go ahead and leave this unchecked. Now, what we're going to do is we have the folder swordancienttongues.temp. Of course, I've renamed them all to temp files because this is a working desktop. And we go ahead and click Browse. And you can see over on our desktop, we have Sword of the Ancient Tongues. Go ahead and select that. Double click on it and you have data and you have meshes. Now this becomes very easy because we know there's only two meshes in here. And if you double click on that, you're not going to see, anything beyond weapons and then Sword of the Ancient Tongues and then nothing. And you can basically just start at meshes. unless there's special caveats. So we'll get to that when we talk about something else. But if you want to go the most basic, you go all the way to weapons, sword of ancient tongues, and that's where we know the file format is the same way. Meshes, weapons, sword of ancient tongues, and there's our two NIFs. So you could either do it either way. You could either leave it as sword of ancient tongues and it'll go directly to the folder you want to optimize, or you can just optimize all your meshes if you know they do not contain any head parts. And we're going to select folder. Okay, so it looks good. So we go ahead and optimize, just like that. Now you think, well, it didn't do much. Well, it just operated so fast you couldn't see it flash through. When we come back into our NIF Optimizer folder and check optimizer.txt, you will see we have two folders right here. You can see the folders that we did, and you can see the two files. And we actually, removed some vertex colors from these four shapes, and cleaned up 6 strings from the header, and then saved the file. As far as number 2, we have basically the same thing, and then save the file. So it will give you a rundown of what you did. So that looks good. We'll just go ahead and minimize that down because we're using that a lot. Let's go ahead and double check. Data, meshes, weapons, sword of ancient tongues, and then the two NIFs, and you can see the dates and the times are for today. So they changed correctly. All right, so that looks good. Now you can go ahead and package this up and, add it to sword of ancient tongues, and then load it up into your mod manager choice, Nexus mod manager or mod organizer. And in episode 10, we showed you how to go through that process. For Nexus mod manager, it'll be in your data folder. Just go ahead and cut it out, put it in your temp file, and repackage it. So I don't have to go over that again with you, right? Right. And as mod organizer, you go into your overwrite. Same sort of thing. I don't need to go over old information. I'm just going to delete that for now and move these up. That is the most basic operation of NIF Optimizer. The second thing I want to talk about is, I'm just going to kind of shuffle things around here, excuse me. Okay, the second thing we're going to talk about for NIF Optimizer, and you can see this is my original Sartorius follower from the original Skyrim, and I converted it over to SE a while ago so I could have an NPC of the main protagonist. But if you open this up and you look at the Sartorius follower, you have meshes and you have textures. Okay, actors, textures are fine. I don't see anything big deal there. TGA, I can delete that if I wanted to. I just never did because it's the original Legacy edition of Skyrim. And you have meshes, actors, character, face gen data, face geometry, Sartorius follower.esp, and you have one NIF. Because this is face gen data, face geometry, this is face parts. So if we wanted to optimize this, because we know it's a face, let's go ahead and browse again. Go back to our desktop, find Sartorius. Where is he at? There he is. Sartorius, meshes, actors, character, face gen data, face geometry. And you notice there won't be anything beyond Sartorius follower.esp. But that's where we know it is. It's under Sartorius follower ESP is where the one NIF is. Select that folder. And we'll go ahead and select head parts only and optimize it. Check our file folder for NIF Optimizer. And you can see it found the one file, and it said it's a male head imperial, human beard, medium, human beard. Okay, we got all this stuff. So it went ahead and saved the file because it was only one file in there. So it's optimized. And if you were to go back into Sartorius follower again and it's already updated it to today's date. So those are the two basic things as far as whether to use a head parts or to not. There are some caveats, so let's talk about that. For companion Volfar, and that's mod number 25360, I went ahead and opened it up, and you have data. And this is a mod I converted for Stu over at Couch Warrior. Companion Volfar. So, look, a BSA. Okay, we're going to have to use BSA extract for this purpose. Now, open up your modding tools again. Go to where you have BAE, and you're going to run the executable. Like I said, if you want full instructions on this, go watch that video from Micro from Gamer Poets. So, what we have is a BSA. We need to crack open the BSA and take a look at what's inside and make it so we can work with it. What we're going to do is highlight it like we have, And we're going to drag it over into the BAE box right here. And that we can see what's inside of it. You have meshes, scripts, SEQ, sound, and textures. All right, okay, we got some meshes in here. Okay, we're talking about that, but we also have some scripts, some SEQ, some sound, and some textures. We're going to go ahead and extract it. And when you hit extract and you go to your desktop, you're looking for companion Volfar. Where is he at? There he is right there. And you can see under data, but we want to have this match up. So that looks good right there. And select that folder. And boom, just like that, we have meshes, scripts, SEQ, just like we had over here. If this all looks good, we can go ahead and close Bethesda Archive Extractor because the next step, you have to close it. Okay, but it all is here. If you wanted to double check and make sure everything is correct in here, you could go through and run through all these textures, armor, you have brooch, chain, fur. Okay, that looks good. So we can go ahead and delete the BSA, the companion Volfar.bsa. Because the ESP now has all the loose files, and you'll see this a lot, BSA versus loose files, you don't need the BSA. You could repackage this up in using the CK archiver, but I think for the most part, users at our level are fine with loose files. If you don't want to use the BSA, and obviously we don't want to because we're going to be changing the meshes, we want to delete the BSA. So we have to actually close this down or it won't let me delete the BSA. But that's just my note on re-archiving these things. I think it's overall better just to leave them as loose files unless you have a specific reason for doing so. And quite frankly, it's a pain in the butt because the included tools for the archive is just a pain. So we're going to delete that BSA. So now this mod will work just fine as a loose file format. But we have some work. We're going to talk about the meshes because that's what we're here to talk about, NIF Optimizer. That's BSA. We'll talk about that more when we get into other mods. But we don't want to, we can go through and check all the textures, make sure that there's no TGAs. I know there isn't, so you don't have to, worry about that too much. But we're going to, assume that you did. Meshes. This is where it gets interesting. Meshes, armor, Omasan, that's the mod author. Companion Volfar, armor and beards and a corpse chair. Okay, so armor is all of his personal armor for that NPC, and you'll see a lot of custom NPCs have their own meshes for different armor things. Then you have a chair that is something, a environmental thing that the mod author created, and then you have beards. Well, this is different because beards are considered face parts. So how do we manage this? For NIF Optimizer, you want to go ahead and do the head parts first. That means do the beards first. So we're going to click head parts only and then browse. And we can go back, and we're going to go back into our desktop because I've been doing things really fast. And then find companion Volfar, data, meshes, armor, Omasan, companion Volfar, and beards. Because this is where the beards are. These are the face parts. We want to optimize these first. Select that folder. And you're going to optimize. Let's go ahead and check our NIF Optimizer folder and check our text. And in this case, they found two files. So you can see it's companion Volfar, data, meshes, armor, Omasan, companion Volfar, beards. And you can see we have some, duplicate steps here, but we went ahead and skinned the mesh and cleaned up 8 strings and then saved the file. And for the other one, it's beards, prisoner cuffs. I don't understand why this is listed under here, but just be aware of what you're talking about. So these are beard meshes. Even though it says prisoner cuffs, it's cleaning these up and save the file. So now we've done the head parts only. Why is that relevant? Well, if you were to just go through and start at meshes and say, okay, we're going to go ahead and optimize the whole thing without the head parts, it's going to optimize the head parts incorrectly. So you always want to do your head parts first. That just sounds really odd, doesn't it? Let's go ahead. We now need to do the rest of his armor, Omasan, companion Volfar. And you can see we have armor and beards. Beards is done. If you want to look, there's the dates. but the armor still needs to be done and his corpse chair. So in this case, if you start out a companion Volfar or even go back into armor or meshes completely, you could do that. There we go, meshes. You could start there, and that's perfectly fine because you know you've already done the beards. So let's go ahead and browse again. And we go back into data, into our meshes, and select folder. And since we don't have head parts checked, we can go ahead and optimize them all. And we will check our folder with the text file. And you can see we went ahead and did 18 files. And you have the armor stuff. You have, well, we'll look for the chair to make sure we did that. Companion Volfar. There we go. This is what I want to see. We did the corpse chair. You can see that we cleaned up 2 strings, did file. We did a bunch of armors. But when you look at the beards, and this is the big thing, we're back at beards again. You can see that NIF Optimizer said, you know what? This doesn't match the old Skyrim. We are going to skip the conversion. So it knew that it was smart enough to know that you don't have to do anything with this mesh or this NIF file. And it went ahead and skipped it. And we just go ahead and skip it. Skip conversion. So it looks good. We just cleaned it up a little bit. So we can close that down and minimize that. So we are good on that. So now if you go back into armors, you can see it's all today's date. Beards, we did that earlier just a few minutes ago. And the corpse chair is all done. You could go ahead and run this through Mod Organizer or Nexus Mod Manager, then run it through the CK, make the conversions, and it may or may not, I already checked, and it may or may not give you some additional textures, and that's fine. Just go ahead and grab them and drop them into your temp files. But I wanted to show you that in regards to NIF Optimizer and how you have to work the file system to make it work optimally so you get all of your face gen meshes done first. Does that make sense? So we did beards first, and then we went back and did these, and it skipped over the beards. We start getting into something a little more complicated. Bosmer Armor, as you minimize this down, this is the Bosmer Armor Pack, mod number 37289. I chose this for a couple reasons, and you can see I've already extracted it into a temp file. And once again, we have an ESP and a BSA. Let's go ahead and open up our modding tools, grab our Bethesda Archive Extractor again, move it over, and we're going to drag the Bosmer Armor MATY743.bsa and extract it into our Bethesda Archive Extractor. And all right, let's see what we got. Okay, you got meshes and textures. Okay. Why is this important? Well, it's a lot of them. Quite a few. We got a bunch of textures. Not a big deal. It looks like it's all DDSs. Okay. Yep. You can see they're all DDSs and no TGAs. See where preview works out pretty well, so you can see if there's any problems with the BSA. But we're going to go ahead and extract those. Once again, going over to desktop, and we're looking for Bosmer Armor. Open that up. And it looks good. Bosmer Armor Temp, Bosmer Armor Temp. Select the folder. And we are extracting. Yay! Okay. And we're going to delete the old BSA because we want a loose files format. Meshes. Armor. Bosmer Armor MATY743. And we have a whole bunch. Lots and lots and lots. But one of the things you have to make sure is you go through each of the folders in turn and make sure there's no head parts. It looks like it's all just stuff. Looks like it's armor, helmets, bracers, all these different things, but I don't see any head parts here. But that's kind of what you have to look for. There's some weapons and the special wild hunt stuff. So we need to optimize all of these meshes. So let's go ahead and open up our NIF Optimizer again, slide this over. And once again, we're going to browse, desktop, Bosmer Armor Temp, and our meshes. And it's going to do all of them, no matter where they are, anywhere in that entire folder of meshes. Select the folder. No head parts were involved in this. It's just going to be all armor and other doodads that are included with the armor mod, and optimize. You see it's got a whole bunch. Check our text file. It found 137 files. And you notice that some of the file pathways are going to be different. Capes, cat and lizards. So it went through and got them all. Let's go ahead and close that down. but we'll go back and check our file. So meshes, armor, Bosmer. So these are all today's, just randomly pick stuff. Yep, looks like it's good. And just double check that you didn't miss anything. It looks good. So everything looks good. It looks like all the dates have been changed. So we're good there. So in this case, we're going to close everything else down. And we are going to go ahead and take our Bosmer Armor temp pack. And we are going to make an archive out of it because there's something I have to show you guys. I'm going to go through with Mod Organizer 2 for this. Just put this in our downloads. And we're going to install it and activate it. Now I'm going to go through and run through the creation kit really fast and show you if there's anything important, but I don't think so. I think we're looking for the results or the output of the creation kit. Okay, here's the first message box of the warnings. It's showing us a bunch of bipedal object slots. Not a big deal. Errors with the automatic doors. That's fine. Close that down, and we'll go ahead and save it. Bust, size, bust. These are all fine. These are all good stuff. Interesting. It said in the errors that the malehead.nif, malehead IMF, is missing FaceGen tint map. Well, there's no male heads. Okay, we may have some issues going on here, but it looks good for right now. Let's go ahead and clear it and close it. Saving's done. Let's go take a look. Okay, it's going to be in our override. Let's just see. Oh, let's create some meshes and textures. So we know there's an issue here. Let's go ahead and close that down, and we're going to close Mod Organizer. Let's go into our where we keep Mod Organizer, common, Mod Organizer 2 in our overwrite. Now, this is what it did. There's our new ESP. We want that. New meshes. These won't need to be optimized because it's created by the creation kit. Armor, character, actors, character, excuse me. Face gen data. Why is it creating face gen? Don't know. Face geometry. Bosmer Armor MATY 743.esp. Okay, and here's all the new NIFs that it created. Why did it do these? Don't know. Okay. Textures. What did it do for textures? Character, face gen data, face tint, Bosmer Armor MATY. There's a bunch of them. What did it do? Let's open one of these up. Okay, some lips. All right, so here's my thing on this, and I've tested it both ways. Now, number one, you're going to go through and get rid of all these TGAs. And I'm just going to do that right now just to make sure that we're, copacetic on things. Hang on. Okay, so all we have right now are DDSs. And it could be just a tint thing. It could be lips. It could be all sorts of different stuff. But mostly it looks like it's all tints. Let's see if we can find. Yep, there's some lips. So why did this generate that? I think this is a case where the mod author left something in his mod that is now the new creation kit is saying, whoa, 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 we don't have this, we don't have that, that this is a holdover, just like those other NIFs. I'm of two thoughts on this, and I've tested it both ways. I've tested it with deleting the meshes and textures and just converting the ESP over, and I've tested with both leaving the meshes and textures in place, adding them to your temp file for the new mod. It didn't seem to affect it either way. I think that for whatever reason, these are holdovers, and that it doesn't seem to affect the mod performance in either way. If you just go ahead and look at the file, size on these, it is about 16.4 megabytes. So it's substantial. If for whatever reason you want to delete these, I would go ahead and save them off to the side, copy and put them in a folder, rebuild your mod with your new ESP, go into game and make sure everything works, and then decide, okay, I don't need those. Or if you think, okay, I'm having some problems with FaceGen or other weirdness going on, put them back in and see how it works. That's why we work with temp files here, guys, because things can change. You don't want to have anything permanent. And you may just go ahead and, delete them or keep them. But that's going to be up to the mod performance itself. Don't just say, I don't need them or I do need them. Try them without. See if there's any performance issues or any weirdness going on. And if there is some weirdness, put them back in, rebuild your .rar, your 7-zip file, and try it again and see if it makes a difference. But that's something to know. I'm going to go show you where those are. I think we covered that in episode 10, where to find these meshes and textures, but I'll just show you real fast in Mod Manager. Okay, I've run the Bosmer Armor pack through the Nexus Mod Manager and the Creation Kit. Let's just go and open the game folder. And you can see we have under Data, we have our new Bosmer Armor Pack way down here at the bottom. And under Meshes, we have Actors, Character, Face Gen Data, Face Geometry, Bosmer Armor. You can see I've been doing some other testing. So if you wanted to go ahead and extract that out, but there's all your new NIFs. You would just go ahead and copy Meshes and then delete whatever else extra is there that is not the Bosmer Armor Pack. And then do the same with Textures, Actors, Character, Face Gen Data, Face Tint, and you can delete the other stuff that is extraneous for the new tints after deleting all your old TGAs. But that's kind of just how that works. Remember, Nexus Mod Manager leaves stuff in there. It's really annoying. So you can see how I've been testing things with Nexus Mod Manager as well. And it leaves remnants, but we talked about that before. Okay, and the last mod we're going to talk about, and not so much from the NIF aspects portion of it, but from the file structure. I want to show you this. A lot of mods have options that you need to be aware of, and there are some strange ways of getting around it, but I wanted to show you this. And this is that critical thinking thing we're talking about. This is Black Sacrament Armor, mod number 5696. And when you open that up after you extract it, you can see you have the faux mod, optional, readmes, scripts, textures, and a BSA. So you've got some stuff going on here, but we'll talk about what's exactly in here in just a second. Let's open up our Bethesda Archive Extractor again, slide our BSA into it. You can see, okay, we got some meshes and textures. Okay, looks good. Let's go ahead and extract it to the same folder. Let's find our Black Sacrament Armor temp file, and that looks good. We can go ahead and select that folder. It's the same structure as what we have. Select folder, and it's going to extract all those in. There we go. There's our new meshes and our textures. Meshes, let's double check. I've already gone through and looked at these. These are all just DDS files. There's nothing here to worry about, but there's quite a bit. Interesting stuff. So meshes on this, female. Looks like it's all just equipment. Looks good. First person, I don't know, a bunch of stuff. But I've already gone through and checked these, but you can just go ahead and check them yourself. And if you're doing any specific mod, make sure you check them all. Make sure there's no face parts. That's what we talked about before. And then male, you have things, but it's basically the same thing as the female with a few less parts and weapons. Okay, so converting this with NIF Optimizer is going to be very easy. And we will just run through that very quickly right now. Okay, set it up. Here we go. Desktop, Black Sacrament Armor, and Meshes. So we can go ahead and select that folder. And it's all just weapons and armor. Looks good. Head parts only. Nope, don't need that. Optimize. Well, that's good, right? Well, let's go through and just double check everything else. What's in optional? There's a blank. Well, it's blank. DB Replacer. Fem Body. I'll come back to this in a second. Fem Body. CBBE Curvy. Oh, these are different body textures or body meshes. Meshes. Oh, okay. So we've got some stuff in here. Female. There's some more NIFs. So when you look at the structure again, we did meshes, but we didn't look in optional. So you have to look in everything. The readmes we don't have to look at, the textures we don't have to look at, and the scripts we don't have to look at. But sometimes there might be stuff hiding in different areas. So you have to look at every folder when you convert a mod. Optional. DB replacers. These are ESP files. We'll come back to that. Fem Body. And these are all the meshes that were required for installing in the foam mod the different body options you need, whether you're using CBBE, UNP, whatever it may be. So we know that under optional, there's a bunch of meshes. But if you look at it, cuirasses, satchels, that sort of thing. So for the most part, you're going to just have to go through and remember that under optional, there's a bunch of meshes. There's a bunch of other stuff in here too, but NIF Optimizer will only look for meshes. And there's no head parts, so we're going to browse again, go back into Black Sacrament, into optional. And it's going to look for every mesh that's in there that it will want to convert. So we go ahead and select folder and optimize. There we go. So if we check our data log, under NIF Optimizer. It found 20 of them. Before it found like 100 and some. Before I should have checked that text file so you could see it. But it went ahead and changed the ones that were in the optional. If you want to be sure about this, go into meshes. You can see we changed all the dates. All the dates have been changed. Okay, so that did it correctly. You don't have to worry about it too much. NIF Optimizer is pretty good. It will go out and find stuff, but always go back and check to make sure it didn't miss anything. Enter optional, the fem body. Let's just grab UNP, meshes. Yep, that's today's date and time. So we're looking good. Everything's been optimized. We're going to close these down because I don't need them for anything else right now. Let's open up back Sacrament again. We now have a loose file format. I've deleted the the BSA out of it. And we have a faux mod meshes optional that has a bunch of ESPs in it. We'll come back to that and talk about that right now. Read mess, readme.txt. Okay, we don't need to care about that. Scripts and textures. Optional. Let's come back into this. DB replacer. What this does, these are the Dark Brotherhood replacer armors. You have a craftable armor for the Black Sacrament armor that you can craft on your own, and these will replace the Dark Brotherhood armor for the different ESPs. But there's only one problem. They're all named the same. Black Sacrament Dark Brotherhood Replacer.esp. Okay, and you can see they're all named the same no matter what you have, what choices you have, whether it's chainmail, leather, mithril, shadow scale, shrouded, unholy, and winter. This becomes an issue. Because they're all named the same, we're going to need to do something special when we convert these. So I'm going to create on my desktop a separate file. New folder. And we're just going to call it Black Sac Temp. And inside of that, open that up, we are going to create 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different folders, all named correspondingly to these different Dark Brotherhood Replacer ESPs. And I'll come back when that's done. Okay, so I'm back, and you can see this is the original Black Sacrament temporary folder where I have all my mod. And you can see this is the ESP that we need to convert, but under optional, we have the Dark Brotherhood replacements and all the different ESPs that are contained in all those different folders. And I've created a Black Sacrament temp file. Notice it was not named the same. And inside of this, we have a bunch of blank folders, chainmail, leather, you get the point, mithril, shadow scale, shrouded armor, unholy, and winter to match these. But there's nothing in them. Okay, and this becomes very important for organization. Because it has so many different ESPs that are all named the same, but have different components that you install with the faux mod, you need to be able to separate them out as you generate the new ESPs so that when you move them over, you don't get confused because they are all named separately, but the ESP is all named the same. Get that? Didn't make sense to me. I think that all makes sense to you when you see it. We now have our temp file that has been, all the NIFs has been cleaned. We're going to create a temporary file, archive. Open up Mod Organizer. I'm going to remove the Bosmer armor so we don't get confused, and drag our Black Sacrament temp in there. So here's what you have to do. Now, when you install this, and you can do the same with Nexus Mod Manager, but it has some special things I'll talk about. Double click to install. You're going to get the faux mod, and it works probably fine. So you have the different body types. You can ignore this because we've changed the meshes inside of the individual files to work just fine. You just leave it at default. When you come down and you have the Shrouded Armor Replacer type, you have none. This is going to install only one ESP. That's it. If you click on either the standard, the unholy, the mithril, the leather, the shrouded, it's going to add a second DB replacer.esp that we showed you under the optional folder inside the mod. So for right now, you don't have to, we can skip this because it will still contain the normal ESP in it. Let's go ahead and click standard. And you notice the standard is chainmail because it's the only one that we don't have by process of elimination. This must be chainmail. Click that and install it. Open that up, optional ESPs. you have Black Sacrament Armor.esp and the Black Sacrament DB Replacer.esp. We can go ahead and close that down for right now. If you're using Mod Organizer 2, this becomes very easy, so you can understand why you're doing it. But as far as using Nexus Mod Manager, you're going to have to install all these separately, rerun the foam mod each time, and keep notes as we go along. But for me in Mod Organizer 2, we can do this. Double click, and we can go ahead and select we know this is standard, that's the chainmail, Unholy. Change the name, Unholy, and install. Now we have a separate one. And I'm going to go through and add all the different options I have for all the different names, and I'll see you when we get back. Okay, we're back, and I've installed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different mods, all with different names, because I want to be able to click them and deactivate them and get the different ESPs that are included with each of the DB replacers. So, like the Sacrament Temp will have the Chainmail DB replacer. This will have the Unholy, Mithril, Leather, Shrouded, Winter, and Shadow Scale. And what we're going to do is go ahead and activate one. Check our plugins, and you'll have the Black Sacrament Armor.esp and the Black Sacrament DB Replacer.esp that we know is for Chainmail. We're going to run this through the CK. And if you're doing this through Nexus Mod Manager, you're going to have to install them all one by one, make notes on what you're doing so you don't get confused and start putting them into the wrong folders in your temp folder where you're keeping all these DB Replacer.esps. Nexus Mod Manager is a little more difficult to make this work, but for Mod Organizer 2, it's very easy. Click, run the CK. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, you see how you have a DB replacer right there. That's not the one we want to do first. The one we want to do first is the Black Sacrament Armor.esp, the basic one. So you double click on that, black check mark, and set as active, and click OK. Okay, here's the first warning window. I'm not surprised by any of this stuff. That's all pretty much what I expected. Close that down, and we're going to save the file. Bunch of warnings. Yep, but you notice it went through very quickly. Clear those and close it, and we are done. Okay, first step done is overwrite. This is our Black Sacrament Armor.esp. This is our base mod. This is what we need to have all the time. We're going to go ahead and close that down. You can leave it in the overwrite for the next step. We still have the chainmail version checked. Remember, the temp is chainmail. I should have renamed it to chainmail. Matter of fact, let's just do that. So we know this is chainmail. We are now going to run the CK again, because remember, this is down the overwrite. It can stay in the overwrite. Run the CK again. Open our folder. And this time, since we've already cleaned or converted the Black Sacrament Armor.esp, we are looking for the Black Sacrament Dark Brotherhood replacer. Double click, get the black check, set as active. Click OK. Okay, a bunch of errors. I'm not surprised by this. Go ahead and clear that out. And save that file. And close the CK. Okay, in our overwrite, we now have the base mod, the Black Sacrament Armor, and the Black Sacrament DB replacer that we know is for the chainmail. Close that down. I'm going to close Nexus or Mod Organizer 2 just because I know it will crash if I try to do too much with it. Go to where we keep our Mod Organizer 2. And if you're using Nexus Mod Manager, it'll be in your download section. You can go ahead and grab those two SPs, but they are in the overwrite for Mod Organizer 2. Let's find our temp file. This is our temporary holding file. But the first thing we're going to do is open up our Black Sacrament _.temp that has our old ESP in it. We're going to delete the old ESP, and we're going to grab our new ESP that we created today, drag it, and drop it in. We can now leave this here. We could have cut this out and deleted it. That's fine. And at least we know our base ESP, the one that is the parent for this, is in our new Black Sacrament.temp file. So we can go ahead and close that one down. Now in our Black Sac.temp, this is our working folder. We know this was for the chainmail. And so we want to open up our temporary folder and drop in. We can just cut and paste the chainmail because that is the default one. Paste it in. And then we can close our overwrite. Now, you can see where this can get really confusing if you don't have temporary folders set up for the different things. And if you're using Nexus Mod Manager, you'll have to just go through and install them one by one, make notes on what you're doing, and then go ahead and do the same thing. We can now move on. I'm going to close that down for the time being. Open up next our Mod Organizer 2. I can tell I'm getting a little tired. We're going to deactivate Black Sacrament Chainmail, and we're going to activate Black Sacrament Unholy. You can see we have the original unconverted Black Sacrament Armor, and we have the unconverted DB Replacer for Unholy. We're going to run the CK again. Open up our folder. Once again, looking for the Black Sacrament Dark Brother Replacer, but we know this is for Unholy. And we can go ahead and set as active file and click OK. And we run through the same process as we did for the chainmail. I'm going to skip way ahead, just move on to the next step. Okay, in this case, we know that we did the Unholy, and it was properly converted in the CK, but it's going to be in our overwrite. You can see it's just another Black Sacrament Dark Brother Replacer. Let's go ahead and open up our Mod Organizer 2 folder again into our overwrite. And if you're doing this with Nexus Mod Manager, it will be in your data folder. Just go ahead and right-click on it, cut it, and then open up our blacksac.temp, identify Unholy, and paste it in. And close it down. You can kind of see where we're going with this. Now our override's clean. There's nothing in it. We can now uncheck Unholy and move on to the next one in line, and that's going to be Mithril. And we're going to run through and do the same process with each of these, replacing only the Dark Brotherhood Replacer.esp. And once I get through all of these, I'll come back. All right, that was a lot of work. But we're back. You can see I've cleaned up my Mod Organizer 2, so all the old mods were all gone. I can go ahead and close that down. And we're going to delete the old temp file, because now we have a bunch of work to do on this. So we have our temporary holding folder, and we have our temporary Black Sacrament mod. And we open both of these up, and we'll take a look at what we're going to do. You can see this is our temporary folder file that we have holding for all this stuff. And then we have our main mod. Open up our optional DB Replacer, and you can see we have the same format. Now, on this, you can see we have the old 2012 one, and under chainmail, we have the new converted one. And in all of these, you can see we've changed them all. And we have the new ESP that is converted to SE. So what we can do is go ahead and open this up and drag and drop it into chainmail. It's going to say, do you want to replace the file in the destination? Yes, we want to do that. So we now have a new one in there. And we go ahead and do the same thing. Leather, drag it and drop it into leather. Replace the file. And you do the same thing with all of them. I'm just going to do it very quickly and come back. Okay, those are all done. Let's see if I can move things around here again. So inside of each of the DB replacers, we have all the new ESPs that were created by us today. And with that in mind, it looks like we're all done. So we have the foam mod meshes optional readmes, the scripts, the textures, and the base Black Sacrament Armor.esp. Of course, in the optionals, we have all the DB replacers, and in the meshes for the fem body, we changed all of those to today's date. So we have all that done. So this mod is basically ready for us to pack up and then go test. And testing something like this is going to take quite a while. So we're going to create a new blacksacrament.temp file, and you can download it into your, install it into your mod manager of choice, whether Mod Organizer 2 or Nexus Mod Manager, and test it out, make sure it all works. If it all works, rename it and repackage it up to _SE or whatever your normal naming convention is. So that one's pretty complicated, but you have to break it up into different sections. You have to be organized and know what you're doing, especially if you're using Nexus Mod Manager, because there's no naming convention to know exactly what you're working on. So I think creating a checklist, a flow chart for you to work off of so you remember what one you're doing, which of the optional DB replacers that you're doing is appropriate. So one other thing I want to talk about, I'm just going to show this to you real fast, and that is immersive weapons. I've already converted this over, and I know this works, but there's something I got to show you on this. Think, okay, now great, we can do immersive weapons. Well, Yes and no. I've already unpacked the BSA so you can see everything that's in it. And under meshes, you think, okay, well, it's got its scripts, SEQ textures, all the textures look good. Under meshes, if you look under any of these, you'll find basically a bunch of, just normal NIF files. Well, not quite. Under 74_W, animations. You have all these weapons and all the NIFs involved with that, but under animations, under both these files, you have .havoc files. And that's the next portion of this series that we'll be talking about changing animation mods using another tool in the series. But that's for the next episode because my voice is really tired. My name's Cal. I'm from Dirty Weasel, and I'm signing off.